happy Wednesday. Today I'm talking specifically about the MAC Pro Conceal and Correct palettes. I know normally I don't do a lot of product focus videos, but when I mentioned these in my kit video that I did, I think it was 2 videos ago, you guys had a ton of questions for me about these palettes, and you had a ton of questions about concealer and corrector in general. So I'm going to be talking all about that today. So a little more information for you guys who were asking about these palettes. The retail price of these palettes I think is $48. Just a reminder to look into the MAC Pro discount. I'm going to include the link to that in the description box below in this video so that you can start working towards getting your pro discount. The regular pro discount from MAC is 40%. I think the hairstylist, esthetician, and student pro discount for MAC is between 20 and 30%. I'll include the link to that below. You can check it out. So it's $48 retail, and then obviously if you have your pro discount, it makes it much more affordable. In each palette, you get 4 concealers and 2 corrector tones. Let me open this one up for you and just show you how they've structured it. So regardless of the shade that you're getting, I have these 3 in my kit. The top 4 are concealers and the 2 bottom ones are correctors, and each corrector duo has a yellow and like an apricot or an orange corrector in with the palette. So this is the medium to deep skin tone one. You can see the difference in the light. I'm hoping the camera is able to see this. It's a very faint yellow and a very faint, almost peachy color. Super light, so perfect for very fair skin. So in the dark palette here, you've got your kind of deep mustard yellow and your orange, and you can tell with darker skin, you do need a corrector that has a more vibrant color to it to be able to color correct. MAC has pretty much thought of everything for you. They've got your concealers, they've got both your cool and warm tones in each concealer palette, and they've got correctors for you. The general consistency of the MAC concealers is amazing. I love it. It goes on very creamy. It's not dry. It doesn't cake up a lot depending on how you apply it. The coverage is about a medium coverage, but it is buildable. So it's the perfect consistency of product to mix with a color corrector to correct things on the skin. With this palette, you can correct under eye circles, you can correct spots on the skin, you can make the skin look a little bit brighter, you can cover moles, you can cover tattoos. Another great thing that I wanted to mention about this product is that you do get a nice range within the 4 concealers of shades. So if you want to experiment with contouring with a cream product, if this color works for you here, the one under it is going to be a couple shades deeper. So it's a great product to try to contour if you're new to learning how to contour with cream products. So it's a pretty handy product to have. And that's the reason why I wanted to do a product specific video on these guys, because I do find they're very well thought out. The consistency of the product is great and easy to work with. And there's a lot of things that we can learn from these palettes. So again, you don't need to run out and buy these just because I'm talking about them in this video, but some of the principles that MAC uses to put these palettes together are really helpful if you are building your own palettes at home. Maybe you can't afford a MAC palette similar to this. Maybe you want to build a concealer palette with concealers that you have easier access to that are more affordable for you. Maybe you want to go to a drugstore and build your own concealer palettes. So basically how these are structured: cool tones and warm tones in concealer, 2 shades of each, one lighter, one darker, and then the color correctors that are appropriate for the skin tone. The other thing I quickly wanted to mention about this product is that it is not waterproof. It is very highly pigmented, so it has a very long wear, but again, not waterproof. If you are looking for something that is specifically waterproof, this is probably not the product for you. However, the pigmentation is so high. I use this a lot for bridal. I use this for television and film production. I pretty much use this palette for everything. It can last on the skin for a 10 or 12-hour day. That is not a problem at all. So if you are somebody that is looking for something that is specifically waterproof, you may want to check out the Cinema Secrets instead. But I can guarantee you guys, this product, very durable, lasts a long time, and great for bridal, television, film, pretty much everything. This is why I have it in my kit, because it is such a great product. The other great thing about this palette, the color correctors, as I mentioned, MAC includes a yellow base corrector and either an apricot or orange base corrector depending on the skin tone. The deeper the skin tone, the deeper the color corrector has to be. Now we're going to do a quick review on the color wheel and color theory. So MAC has included that yellow or orangey or apricot tone corrector in their palettes because they're great for neutralizing a lot of discoloration on the skin. As we remember from the color wheel, opposite colors on the color wheel neutralize each other. Your yellow orange, or your orange if you're working on deeper skin tone, is going to neutralize anything opposite on the color wheel. So that's your violet, your blue green. So that's usually the color of under eye circles, and that's why they have included it in this palette. The other great thing is those orange and apricot colors have a great brightening effect on the skin. So if you do have somebody with a dull skin, you can mix a little bit of that in and it will help you to brighten their complexion. So quick review on the color wheel for you there. And as I mentioned, really important if you are working on deeper skin tones. Even in this color palette here, which is the one that's for medium to deep skin, you can see the orange is much deeper and the yellow is much richer. So the darker the skin tone, the more vibrant your color corrector has to be to work properly. A lot of you also had questions about, are corrector and concealer the same thing? For most brands, and I'm going to just speak generally about this, and with MAC specifically, the corrector and the concealer from a product standpoint are the same thing. They're the same consistency, they have the same coverage, so the only difference with that is the color. And I think for most brands across the board, usually the consistency of their correctors is the same as what you should be mixing it with. So if you're getting palettes that are conceal and correct palettes, the corrector is going to be the same consistency as the concealer. The only difference is going to be the color. It will be the same coverage, it will be the same consistency, but again, just a different color. You also have brands that make more fluid correctors. So I think Naked from Urban Decay, the color corrector is very fluid, so you can mix it in with your concealer or your foundation and it will blend well and it will be able to do the job properly. But for the most part, you're looking at corrector and concealer as being the same thing from a consistency and coverage standpoint, but just different in color. So hopefully that clears up some of the confusion on that for you. I think that's been one of my most commonly asked questions from you guys. Another common concealer question that I get is how to avoid caking and how to avoid the concealer from settling into fine lines and looking really heavy. So one of the tips that I have to help you avoid that and to prevent that from happening is to really think about only applying concealer and corrector where you need it. Nowadays, everybody is applying concealer almost sort of in this mask under the eye and wherever they need it. If you are doing makeup on a bride, a personal client, if you're doing makeup for television or for film where your actor or talent is being filmed in HD, this method of application is not going to work for you. And I'm sure some of you have been realizing this as you've come along and as you're experimenting with different techniques and products. Concealer should only be used where you need it. When you apply too much product, that's where you get that caking. That's where it starts to settle into fine lines. So specifically under the eyes, I've been getting a lot of questions from you guys about how to avoid this cakiness and how to avoid it creasing. Again, use only what you need. If you mix your concealer with the appropriate corrector to correct any under eye circles, you will be able to use less product. So if you have somebody that has a very deep under eye circle here, you don't need to apply concealer all the way across the cheekbone. There's nothing to conceal here. Usually people's under eye circles just are mostly on the inner corner of their eye. So apply your concealer only to there. If you find that the concealer is not covering, then you can go to your yellow corrector or your peach corrector and put a little bit on and apply it that way. But again, concealer only where you need it. You don't need to create this whole mask on your clients just because that's what you're seeing a lot of on social media. That is more a trend. The proper way to use the product to have a natural, healthy looking skin and to avoid using a ton of product is to just apply concealer where you need it. So hopefully that answers your questions about that. Other question that I get a lot from you guys is how to actually use the correctors when you're using them on the face. There's a ton of different ways to do this, and if you guys research and watch other videos, every artist has their own style. So I will give you a couple tips on how to use the corrector and the concealer together. For me, when I'm using corrector and concealer on my clients or on models or anybody that's going on camera, less is more for me. So if I notice a discoloration, let's say I just need a bit of brightening on the skin, I'll mix my apricot concealer or my orange concealer if it's for a darker skin tone with the concealer that I'm using, just a tiny amount, and I'll just apply it in this area here, right where I think my client needs a little bit of brightening under the eye area. So I will mix the corrector in with whatever product I'm using first, and that's always my first method of attack, generally speaking, when I'm applying makeup. If I have somebody in front of me that has really intense dark circles, because I've been doing this for so long, I can usually tell when just my concealer mixed in with corrector isn't going to be enough. So at that point, I would take the corrector, I would probably use something like a yellow because I need something very strong to neutralize that. And I would apply that yellow corrector or concealer first in a very thin layer, and then I would go over top with my actual concealer to help to neutralize those really deep under eye circles. And again, I would do this only where I need it. So if I do have that client that has super dark circles on the inner corner and usually right under here, like really, really dark, you can see the blue, you can see the purple, I'm going to take my yellow corrector, fine, tiny amount, apply that first either with a brush or my fingers, depending on how I'm feeling that day. And then I'm gonna go over top of that with a little bit of concealer, and I'm gonna set that with a fine amount of powder. Again, less product is always more. Less product is what is gonna save you from that creasing and that caking. So try those two techniques where you mix your corrector into your concealer or you mix your corrector into your foundation, and start with that first. And then if that doesn't work, you can always remove it, apply your color corrector first, very small amount, and then apply your concealer over top. And that should help you conceal those really intense under eye circles. I know you guys have had a ton of questions about this, and it's one of the hardest things to learn. Experiment with the techniques that I'm talking about. If there's other ways that work for you, let me know, put them in the comments box below, and we can kind of share our tips and techniques that work for everybody. But for me, usually less is more. And even if I have somebody that doesn't have a ton of under eye circles, but they're kind of there, I will take a little bit of the corrector in my palette, mix it in with the concealer so that I need to use less product overall so their skin looks really glowy and healthy, and we avoid a lot of the product caking under the eyes. That seems to be the trick for me, so try it out and see what you think. So just to review everything we've talked about this video, the MAC Pro Conceal and Correct palettes, some of my favorite palettes to use. You get 4 concealers and 2 correctors in each palette, which I think is just enough. They come in cool tone and warm tone in each palette, and each palette also has an orange or apricot corrector and a yellow corrector. And also to review, our yellow corrector and our apricot or orange corrector works great to neutralize any under eye circles. The apricot and orange also has an additional benefit of being a little bit more brightening under the eye. And again, sometimes that apricot or orange is all you need, and you don't need to go into the yellow to neutralize the deeper dark circles under there. So experiment with both of those things and try it and see what works for you. Another reminder, if you aren't buying these and you're building your own corrector and concealer palettes, the deeper the skin tone, the brighter your color corrector should be, or else it's gonna look really ashy and gray on the skin. So if you are using correctors for deeper skin, just make sure that the ones that you are getting are deeper and a little bit more vibrant. Also make sure that the concealers that you're using have enough pigment. So if there is something that you're using and regardless of the shade, it's coming out really gray on the skin, you might have to move to a more pro-friendly brand where the colors are very pigmented and the coverage is a little bit fuller. So experiment with that. Other thing we mentioned, so in terms of your application of the color corrector specifically, you can try it mixed in with whatever you're using, or you can try where you apply it first to just the areas that you need it for people with darker discoloration on the skin, and then you can apply your concealer and foundation on top. So try that and see what works for you. The other great thing about having this shade range in each palette is that you can use the deeper one to do a little bit of contouring if need be. Just keep it in the same family. So if your client is cool tone, you want to use something that is a couple shades deeper in a cool tone to contour. And same thing with warm tone. If you have warm tone products that are working on your client's skin, when you go to do a little bit of contouring, just make sure that the shade that you're using is a little bit deeper and still in that warm tone so you don't get that gray, muddy, dirty looking contour. And you can actually do all of that with these palettes. So that is it for this video on these MAC Conceal and Correct palettes. Hoping you guys found this helpful. I'm hoping I answered all of the questions specifically about this palette for you and some of the questions you guys had about just concealers and correctors in general. I know so many of you had questions from my kit video, which I was not expecting. So I'm gonna try to do a few more product focused videos. But again, from me guys, there's no pressure. Don't feel like you need to run out and buy this. You can build your own palettes if you like. You can get this if you like. If you hate this product, you can build something similarly with products that you love. Totally up to you how you want to use this information. And again, any more questions, put them in the comments box below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and come and say hi to me on social media. And don't forget to tag me so I can see what makeup you guys are doing. I love to see all the stuff you're working on, and I guess I'll see you on the next video. Bye!